Join me in the drafting of this beautiful flared dress with cape. So many sewing techniques will be revealed. If this is what you're interested in, let's jump right into it. So mate, for us to make this beautiful gown, the total length of the gown I'm making is 23, and then the upper body is 8.5. So I've measured 8.5 in my box here, and I started by minusing 1 inch for me to be able to get the actual starting point for us to plot our basic bodies. So what I've done here is to measure out the length of our upper bodies, okay, which is 8.5, and then I divided the chest circumference into 2, and I added 1 inch allowance, and that is how I'm able to get this square bust. Okay, now let's draft. So we'll be drafting our front and our back pattern inside this box. So dividing this into 2 now, I'm going to mark it out, okay, so I can have our front and back, and afterwards I'm going to mark out my shoulder measurements. Here is 5, and I'll come down by 1 inch. I'll do the same for the back, my shoulder measurement. I'll mark the shoulder slope here. So next I'll be marking my neck depth and my neck width. The neck depth I'm using is 2.5, and for the depth I'll be using 2 inches, and for the back the neck width is 2.5, and I'll come down by 1 inch. I would like to connect all those points together. Next, I'll mark my chest line, and I like to use the same thing I use for the shoulder. Come down here and mark my shoulder. Alright, so like I said, for us to get the cape, because I'm going to plot the cape for this gown, I use the midpoint of my armhole as the point that I want this cape to rest. So what I did is to mark out a straight line across, using that mid as a reference point. I divided the round shoulder for me to be able to mark out my cape, divided it into 4. So I mark out the difference I have here outwards, making sure that I slant my measuring tape like so to be able to get to that point. Okay, and then you determine the width of your cape. Mine is 2.5. I've already marked it here, and I connected it using my chest line as a reference point because it's almost 2.5. So this is going to be my cape, and I also mark it for the back. So next I'm going to trace my cape out before we cut out this pattern. So now I'll be placing this paper underneath while I trace out. Make sure you put a paper that is as wide as the size of the cape you have marked out. So placing it like so, I'll come in with my tracing wheel. You see. I'll bring it out and trace it out. Okay, so I'll label this front, and I'm going to cut it on fold. So now let's trace for the back. Okay, so here we have it. Okay, so keep this aside, and then I'll cut out our pattern. So you can now label this is center front, this is side front, this is our center back, this is our side back. So I would like to connect our points now. So I'm going to now divide the waist circumference divided by 4. I would like to mark it out, then I'll connect it like so. As we cut out. So here is our pattern sewn, and here is the beautiful fabric we'll be using to cut it. I'll be folding it into 2 now so that I can transfer this to fabric. So I'll be pasting the front pattern, and I'll place it on fold. Remember that we did not add any sewing allowance on the pattern, so we're going to add all our allowances on the fabric. So after pasting it like this, I want to pin it down. And start adding your allowance. So for the joining, I'll mark 0.5 allowance. For the side, I'll mark 1 inch allowance, and every other part I'll be marking half 0.5 sewing allowance. After that, I'll cut it out. So these are pattern pieces. This is the cape. I cut it together with the lining I'll use and turn it up, and this is the front. The front is cut on fold, remember? Okay, so this is the back, and this is the front. On the side, I added 1 inch allowance, and on the other side, I added 0.5 allowance. So for the lower part of this skirt, we're going to cut a 360-degree flare. I folded my fabric, I folded it in two, and I folded it again. Okay, so I'm going to, the radius, you have to divide your round circumference by 6.28. Okay, so I'll just mark out my radius, and I'm going to mark the length of the flare I'm making. I'm marking it round now, so I'll mark it round now, and I'll cut it out. So everything I'm cutting here is the round circumference of the flare plus the zip allowance, and then I'll cut it out. I open up this side for the zipper allowance. I'm opening only one side. I'm going to notch the center part. I'm going to use crinoline and turn this flare, so I will beg you to stay tuned and watch the video to the end so that you learn all the tricks I'm going to use to prepare this beautiful gown. And finally, I'm going to cut in 2 nets that will be laid underneath. So I'll cut it out now, and then we'll go ahead and start sewing. So cut your 2 nets according to the length. By the time you calculate the length of the gown and minus the upper bodice, you will know the exact remaining length you want to use for this. So soulmate, sewing tutorial will be in the next video. Do well to watch it. Thank you for joining me, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.